What's going on, everybody? It's David Palmer, the Leo King, and this is my show, Uncut Astrology, where I take off the mask or the veil, and I give you this week's astrological forecast, raw and real, for the week of February 10th through the 16th of 2016. And I wanted to make sure that you were able to see my lion eyes, and not L-Y-I-N-G eyes, my L-I-O-N eyes. It's because I'm a Leo. But I'm going to be very honest with you. It is extremely hot. It's over 80 degrees. It's been 88 degrees where I live, and it's going to even get into the 90s this weekend. So I am keeping the shades on, and I might take them off in between, whatever spirit comes through. If you've never watched this show before, this is where, and if you don't know who I am, I'm an astrologer, and I channel the stars in a very raw and uncut way. I channel, and if you don't know what that means, look it up. But I am here to channel the stars for you in the most raw and real way. Now, let's see here. I want to make a couple announcements before we go into this. Number one, if you didn't know, I got a daily horoscope every day that's really popular, and you can get that on the leokingapp.com, or you can get it at the Apple or Google Play stores. And I have my Alien Talk series up. It's an 8-episode series that you can get on my app, on the iPhone app, in the store in the app, or you can get it at inclusiveastrology.com, where I talk about different aliens, Palladians, channeling, reptilians. I go into the whole entire series, my own experiences with it, what I believe, what I think about spirituality and aliens and so forth. You can get it now at inclusiveastrology.com or on the iPhone app by clicking in the store. Now that we got all that bullshit away, right? Here we are, a week that I think is extremely powerful. One of the most powerful weeks of the year. I would put this in the top 5 weeks of the year. There are 52 weeks in the year, so this one is definitely in the top 5. The reason why, number one, we've just come off a new moon in Aquarius. It is the Chinese New Year, and Mars is on its last full week of being full force in its most powerful sign of Scorpio, because next week, Mars goes shadow. So, this is a huge push this week. This is a huge decision stuff, and it feels weird because you kind of come into this week like, where in the hell is this all going? You get all excited, right? The new moon comes into Aquarius. You get all excited, you get all electric, and then guess what happens? The moon drops into Pisces while the sun's in Aquarius, and you kind of feel like, oh my God, I'm in the waiting room, and I don't know where the hell shit's going, and I don't know how it's going to happen. And that's the feeling. You can kind of feel like you go into this weird place. But the positive news is literally on Thursday and Friday, when the moon jumps into Aries, you will get clarity. And I think this is what shows why Aries is such a clear sign and such a knowing sign and a definition sign, is because we're at a time where we want the definition, but this Aquarian energy has all these things to connect with, and we are fixating on things with a Mars in Scorpio, a Sun in Aquarius, and a quarter square of the moon in Taurus by the weekend. We are hugely fixating on what it is we're trying to figure out in our life. Remember, Aquarius is the fixed intellectual sign. That means it's the genius that goes into a crazy locker or a crazy room and just like locks itself in there and tries and figures it out and plays with chemicals and figures it all out, but it fixates on it. And when you have Mars in Scorpio, it's fixating on our wants, our needs, our desires, our passions so intensely right now. Combine this with all this Aquarius, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the ultimate crazy, weird chemical calculation, weird invention we've ever figured out in our lives. But it's almost like we have to go here because in order for our heart to be happy, there's something we got to go do. We got to go do this crazy experiment in our lives. And I think this experiment's going to test us in ways that we need to go through with courage, with opening, with broadening our soul. This is Saturn and Sagittarius, remember, squaring Neptune and Pisces. This is us, opening our positivities in the middle of all of our sensitivities. Interesting analogy, right? Opening up our positivity, opening up our perceptions, opening up our beliefs in the middle of our deepest sensitivities. And having to do a crazy, wild, weird experiment to get there. And it's all being defined this week because the moon comes into Aries and it will be really good with all this Aquarius. But the weird aspect of this is it's going to square Mercury leaving Capricorn and Venus squaring Capricorn. So it's going to be about this like long-term decisions in our life, these big plans that we have, and the clarity coming with them. But realizing in order to get what we want, we're going to have to play by these certain rules. It's not going to just be like we just get there on a one-way ticket. It's like there's weird levels to go through. And I think that this is a crazy time because it's all being defined. Here's the last week of Mars truly moving forward, because next week Mars is going to come into shadow, and that means that Mars is going to be at a weak spot. It's going to come into a very karmic spot, and it also is getting ready to end its last 2-year cycle of moving forward in full force. So we are now moving out of a very strong defining series in our life, and this is like the climax of what the last couple of years were about for you. So this is the final chapter in many ways of, gosh, my nose is running, my allergies are horrible. This is the final climax story to the last couple years of the definition of who you were for the last couple years in your life. That might sound crazy, but if we look at this, when the quarter square of the moon happens this weekend, it comes into Taurus. It's going to square the sun in Aquarius, and then guess what it's going to do? It's going to square Mars in Scorpio. And this is all about fixating on what we want, what we desire, what we value the most, but in an Aquarian way. This is about, I got to do all these crazy little experiments and things and connect all these little dots and go through this crazy, weird maze in order to get what I really want in my life. This isn't Leo, where it's like, all I got to do is love myself and just do this and show up on the throne and it's all going to work out and tell people what it's going to do and it's just going to happen. Oh, no. In Aquarius, you got to pour water to people. You got to go through the maze. You got to figure out the experiment. It's not that simple. And so we are all having to go into these crazy experiments that are going to take us into a place that need to open us up, that broaden our horizons, that take our worlds and expand them in our most sensitive positions. But deeper than that, it's like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, when the evil queen, she goes like, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And then of course the mirror says, it is Snow White. And she fixates, I gotta kill Snow White, and it's not that we're here to kill anything, but we're coming to this place where it's almost like if you really realize you're waiting for an answer, you're waiting for the right thing, it's almost like you've made your decision for it, and this weekend comes and it's like, okay, I'm doing this, or okay, I'm doing that. We're at a huge culmination, pyramid splitting point in our lives. How do relationships fit in this? Well, I don't think this is about relationships right now. Venus is kind of, if I were to look at the position of Venus right now, I would call this position void if it was a moon. Venus is just sitting there this week, not doing much, going to have a nice trine to the moon. But other than that, Venus just had Mars sextile it, but that's over. The truth is, this is about you. This is about you in your life. This is about what you want. So relationships might come into conflict because this is where everybody's picking their side of the team, their side of the story, and who they're going to be. So this has nothing to do about relationships. This has everything this week to do with you. It affects relationships in a certain way, though. Mercury comes out of shadow period by the weekend too, while this big quarter square of the moon's happening. That gives us all the answers that we're looking for. It's like the moon comes into Aries Tuesday, Friday, then this big moon on Saturday, and then Mercury comes out of shadow and moves into Aquarius, and everything starts, all the answers start coming and all the figuring out. And then Venus at the end of this week, when we come to next week's Uncut, boom, then Venus comes and goes straight into Aquarius. So it's like everything comes out of Capricorn, everything comes into Aquarius, everything comes into this exciting motion, and we all kind of get ready to drift onto the new world. It's a little bit Christopher Columbus-y. He must have been scared shitless. But he knew he had to do it anyway. What a crazy experiment. I got to go into a boat and try and find the new world. And in many ways, that's where we're all at in our life right now. And we are all excited, we're all ready, but we all feel vulnerable, unsure, but sure. And this weekend really tests your self-worth. And if you do feel sure, the moon is going to oppose Mars. It is going to square the sun. So emotionally, you're going to have to look at if you can deal with this experiment, if it's really worth it or not. And then if you're really passionate about it or not. And you got to see which side of the fence you're more passionate about right now. Because this is the end of Mars direct without shadow. And I'm going to be honest with you, because Mars will not be direct in Scorpio anymore without being in shadow for a couple years. So this is the end of Mars in Scorpio, in my opinion, of full strength. And somebody give me a tissue, please. Gee, mini Christmas. Think about that, though. That's for some advanced astrologers. But think about this. Mars goes to 8 degrees Sag, and then in April, at the end of April, it goes retrograde. Goes all the way back into Scorpio to 23 degrees, and then moves forward. But when it moves forward on June 29th and into July and August, it's going through Scorpio in a shadow, which means it's not at full strength. So this is it, folks. Mars in Sag is the exciting adventure we all go on. It's Christopher Columbus leaving on the boat. But you have to see that this is all of us preparing us and internally and knowing that we're ready to get on this damn boat or not. You know what I mean? Like, am I sure I'm going to get on this damn boat here? Woo! And which boat am I going to take? Or maybe I'm not going to take a boat. Maybe I'm just not even going to take this journey. Maybe I'm going to get on a car and I'm going to go that way. It is a huge duality moment in our lives. Plus, North Node and Jupiter have finally started to break apart. So this means that everything over the last 2 to 3 weeks that came to you, these are the doors. Take these opportunities. I've been screaming these opportunities are not going to come like this. I don't want to say ever again, because opportunities always do amount. And I think Saturn and Sagittarius will show us that there are extremely crap loads of opportunities always. But these are the most fated. These are the most destined ones. And this is it, folks. This is it. This is the real McCoy here. This is you really figuring it out. And I think by the time I meet up with you next Tuesday and Wednesday, right when Mars is ready to go into shadow, which will be on the 18th, I think is the exact date. So 17th and 18th, Mars starts entering shadow. Woo! And with all this, monkey energy that's in, right? It kind of reminds me of Uranus and Aries, It's like everything's unpredictable and you really need to figure out what you want and you really need to jump for it and you really need to go and it's kind of crazy, but you got to do it. So this is a huge, huge week. Trust me, the answers are coming even at the last moment when you don't think they are. They're coming. And I think this has been a true test of whether or not you can surrender and let the answers come to you, or if you're freaking out and wondering. And I think once the answers come, you have a choice. I think the universe kind of gives you, or you've been processing, 2 different roads here. With Saturn and Sagittarius, it might be infinite roads, but I think that you're going to notice that it's a couple. Maybe a third is, the Aquarian always throws in the third, Not, it's like you're having sex with somebody and then the third person comes in. That's Aquarius. It's like, what? Woo! Woo! With Mars and Scorpio. The other aspect of this, if we just want to bring up sexual energy, I think this is really getting down to some extreme sexual stuff going on in our lives, as far as like how we're feeling about what we're passionate about, if we're feeling that connection with certain partners, what kind of partners we want. And I think when Venus comes into Aquarius and we have Mars going through this weird shadow period, we're about to enter some really crazy sexual relationships or some sexual realizations in your relationships very powerfully. And we're kind of like feeling like, I think, a little bit suppressed, even though we might be having sex. There's like this aspect where maybe your soul isn't feeling like it's fully like, And I think because that's when Mars is in Scorpio and when Venus is in Capricorn, there's like a deeper connection. But this is like on a whole nother level. So hope that helps. I don't want to go too long, but that is your horoscope for this week. And of course, make sure you get me on my app, the LeoKingApp.com. Make sure you check everything out and get the Alien Talk series. It is now available for download. You can get the whole series at a discounted price, or you can buy them one by one. Thank you for all the support. I truly appreciate it. And I am thinking about you, sending you all my love, and I will see you next week.